not about being a better boss at work. It's about being a better human. And our world needs better humans. We need to teach our kids that. Every human being is somebody's child. Somebody's child. That's super impactful. So we should treat somebody's child just like your own.
Welcome to the Weekly Leadership Experience, a place for leaders to get inspired, be challenged, and grow. I am your host, Reshad Oberlander. Let's get started. Today's episode of the Weekly Leadership Experience is brought to you by my 7-day Leadership Growth Challenge. It's a free challenge that I've created, and it's delivered by email over the course of 7 days. I've created 7 compelling questions to challenge various aspects of your leadership, the way you lead, and why you lead. Go to reshadoberlander.com and scroll down until you find the 7-day leadership challenge, or look for the link in the show notes. Hello, leaders, and welcome to the show. Today, I'm joined by Cory Blair, co-founder of Servant Leadership Academy, and also co-founder of Affective Consulting based out of Regina, Saskatchewan. Together with co-founder Kevin McBeth, Cory founded the Servant Leadership Academy with the goal to educate and advance the awareness of servant leadership philosophies and values with leaders from around the world with the purpose of creating better leaders and better organizations. Cory holds a degree in political science from the University of Regina, as well as certifications in change management and servant leadership, among others. Cory describes himself as a true servant leader, loves to coach others to better understand who they are, and lives in Balgonie, Saskatchewan with his wife and 4 children. Cory, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on. Servant leadership is a near and dear subject to my heart, so I'm excited to talk about it with you today. Before we get too far into the show, I think it would help if you could define servant leadership for us in a broad sense.
Yeah. Servant leadership is simple. It's been around for years, but basically the concept is your number one responsibility of a leader is the well-being of your people. So helping them grow and develop into awesome human beings so they can be awesome human beings in their communities. And that's it. It's a very simple message.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I love and I've seen from your material is that the idea is that being a servant servant leader has more to do with helping people be better people than just being better employees. Yeah.
So like Kevin and I always talk about this. It's a lot of times training and concepts are all focused about work. As a leader, you want your people to be great people 24/7, 365 days out of the year. That's the whole point. So we've noticed that when people work or are being led by a true servant leader, their whole life kind of grows and they develop into good humans with their families, their friends, in their communities. So just not in their job. That's right. And that's really what this is all about. We as humans long for that. We want to be good to each other and care about each other. And it's just not from 9 to 5. It's all the time. So yeah, that's a really good point about servant leadership is it's all the time. It's growing and developing all the time.
Well, that's a nice kind of a simple look that we can take with us as we go through this conversation today. But with that definition that you've given us in mind, let's take a look back at what made you choose servant leadership and what led to the formation of Servant Leadership Academy.
Yeah, I guess we always ask these questions. There's always been an influencer or some influence or impact in our lives, and Kevin's not with us, but he has his own stories and things like that. But for me to start with was my dad, and my dad he ran a business for 40 years, and he had this way of doing things with people that was amazing. He wasn't the first to speak; he was always the last to speak. He was always the last person to eat at the supper table. And he did a lot of cooking, so he was a really good cook. And I think he wanted everybody to try it first. But he had this way of leading people by not really talking. It was this way of listening and putting himself in other people's shoes. So as a young kid growing up, I always wanted to be like my dad. And then I had some coaches playing sports growing up that always brought out the best in me, and they always tried to grow and develop me as just not as an athlete, but as a person, and taught me life lessons. And so that's always been ingrained in the back of my head, especially when I'm going to go to work or when I'm dealing with people, is to put people first. And then as you get older and you go to school and you get educated and you start working in places, you start to see different things. And Kevin and I always, once we met each other and started working together, we said, we should be doing things a little differently. Leadership should be about people. And we always talk about that. We said, what's the number one common denominator in any business in the entire world? And we asked this question, and people put up their hand and they say, well, profit or money or widgets or materials, selling something. And we're like, no. Any business is about people. We do things for people. So leadership should be about taking care of the people you lead and serve. And so as we started developing and looking at this stuff, that's what true leadership is about. And any leader like my father or my coach or Kevin's had leaders in his life that have impacted him as well. We said, this is something. So we started reading, and we found Servant as a Leader by Robert Greenleaf. And it's just a little essay book. It's not found at Chapters or Amazon or wherever to buy. And we read it, and we're like, this is the missing piece. So what we did is essentially, got certified in servant leadership, and then develop our own curriculum, and made it more modern and more 21st century, I would say, so that we could start teaching this to people. And it's been about a 5-year process. So that's kind of how we did it. It's just, learning, adapting, and seeing this and just kind of making your own. But it's needed. It's a big thing in today's world.
Well, those are great stories, and what a powerful model and mentor in your dad, which is, I think, important, for anyone, right, growing up, or for anyone in their leadership journeys, to have those mentors and role models to look up to, and to learn from. So fantastic that you had that in your life. I want to ask, prior to starting Servant Leadership Academy and Affective Consulting, you had a long stint in the corporate world. So how has that shaped your views on leadership?
Well, I think I joked with you before about, watching The Simpsons when I grew up as a kid, and my favorite character is Homer, and I learned lots of things from Homer of how not to parent your kids.
Right.
I would say the same thing in the corporate world. And I worked in a company that was awesome. I'm not going to lie. It was a great company. It taught me lots. Mm-hmm. It taught me lots of things of leadership that, isn't really my beliefs or in my core values. But I also did meet a lot of great leaders in that organization that did help shape my perception of leadership and my beliefs in leadership. But the reality was, the reason why I don't work there anymore is it shaped it to kind of push me out the door and start something else, because we were doing things for the 5% and not the 95%. So in a big corporate world, and we talk about this all the time, is the 5 beliefs of servant leadership, and it's a workshop that we do. We make policy for the 5% and not the 95%. And those 5% are people that take advantage or break rules or, are negative in the workplace or causing issues. And then as leaders or managers, we're trying to fix those 5% by creating some policy or creating a process to stop these things, rather than focusing on the 95% of the people that get it and helping them grow and develop. And that's probably the biggest takeaway from all of this is when I worked there, is I saw that all the time, and it drove me crazy. And I want to focus on relationships, on people, not on the bottom line or profits and those types of things. And that's, I think, what happens in the corporate world lots. And the people that suffer from that are the employees. They want a voice. They want to be part of the solution. They want the freedom to be themselves. And sometimes in the corporate world, you get kind of stuck in that box, and it can be frustrating. And there's stats out there about engagement scores and absenteeism, and now with COVID hitting, like we're going to see a huge impact on this in the next 5 years. But those engagement and those absentee stats are alarming, and we need to really start investing in leadership and believing and respecting our people first and foremost. They're the number one asset in any organization. So yeah, like the corporate world is great. It taught me tons, and it also taught me and helped me along in this leadership journey that we're on.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a number of really interesting things in what you just said. And first, I'd like just a little bit more on like this idea. And I mean, I don't know if I've ever really considered it, but like, policies, you always just assume, I've got a long corporate career myself, and like, you've got companies that have either very few policies, whether that's by design or by default. And then you got big companies sometimes where there's policies for everything. Like you can't turn around without there being a policy for how to turn around. But this idea that those policies are so often created just for that small fraction of people who are the cause of the policy.
Yeah. I got a great story to tell you. My oldest son, he's 13. He plays hockey. And this was 3 or 4 years ago. We traveled to Winnipeg on a team bus, and we watched the Winnipeg Jets play hockey. And I just told this story in our training a couple of weeks ago. And the game was over, and the coaches got to set up a meet and greet with Jaden Schwartz, who plays for the St. Louis Blues, and he's from Saskatchewan. So the kids all got to meet him, and the coaches, but the parents couldn't. We had to stay in the corridor. But all of a sudden, there's an employee there, and she comes down and starts screaming at us to leave the complex immediately. Well, it's minus 45 outside. None of us were really like being loud or obnoxious. We're literally waiting for our kids. And I said to her, hey, like, she didn't look happy. She didn't look like she wanted to be there. She didn't look very engaged. And she says, hey, no, like you need to leave now. That's the policy. And I said, yeah, but our kids are down there. We're not really doing anything. Like, can we just stay for 5 minutes? And it's really freezing cold. Well, my manager told me that this is the rules and this and this and this and this. And I was just like thinking, I actually said to her, I said, your policy's stupid. I said, there's 9-year-old kids down there with a couple adults. We're just waiting for our kids. And she kind of looked at me. She's like, yeah, you're right. And I said, she wasn't thinking for herself. So think of all the staff that maybe there's a policy or something like that, or something goes on where you just can't be yourself, and you get grinded on. And it's just, my manager told me, because that's it. And power and control,
mm-hmm.
and not the freedom to just, make your own decisions and empowerment of being a staff member. So that's one example I use that just really stuck with me.
Yeah. And I mean, an interesting example, like just because the policy says doesn't make it the right move in that moment, right? It's interesting. Something else you mentioned in or a little bit earlier there was about how engagement and attendance and kind of some of these what have become key metrics in a lot of cases are so horrendous. Like there's always these Gallup surveys or one or another management consulting company out there will put out these numbers of how low engagement is and how unhappy employees are and how much the turnover is and all this kind of stuff. And like they're kind of like these symptoms of illness, I think, right? That I mean, I don't know if would you go so far to say that servant leadership is the cure, or are we just talking about like good engaged leadership?
Good engaged leadership, I'm going to tell you this right now. Servant leadership can be put into any type of leadership stream. Mm-hmm. So you have transformational leadership, other types of leadership that we talk about all the time. But really what we've noticed and what we're seeing is servant leadership can be that cure, because you as a leader have this ability to make people or help people be themselves authentically and be themselves all the time, right? And sometimes in a lot of these instances in our work, we have leaders that don't share that power and control. And that's what they focus on, is power and control over people. And what happens is those people become disengaged. There's a stat that floats around: 80% of people leave a company because of their direct manager or leader. And when servant leadership allows you, it's a mindset shift. So like it allows you to really let go of that power control and surround yourself with awesome people and help them grow and develop, so you as a team can collaborate and get things done, do awesome stuff. That's all this is to understand people. Everybody has a story. So you as a leader should, you want to learn those stories and learn about those people and build trust. There's big leadership gurus out there. We're Simon Sinek fans, and he talks about the why, but he also talks about trust lots. And if you trust your leader, that's awesome. Like in sports, for example, typically the team that wins the Super Bowl or the Stanley Cup or whatever isn't the most talented team. It's a team that trusts each other and they have great leadership because you believe in each other, you share power and control, and you use tactics of servant leadership. It's all in there. Serve others. If you serve others, they're going to serve others, and the world becomes a better place.
I mean, that just makes me think of the Zig Ziglar quote about helping enough people get what they want, and eventually you get what you want, which is my paraphrase.
That's bang on.
Yeah. So,
that's bang on.
With that being said about kind of the state of leadership, I guess, what is the problem with leadership today? Like, why are we not there?
We only have an hour. So, I don't know. It's been interesting. And summary. I think today we become a me society. Very narcissism lives everywhere. I don't know if it's because of social media or whatever, but it's all about me. Look at me, look at me, look at me. And it's not about look at us or how are you doing. It's that. So what happens is that rubs off on people in the wrong way. And then it's because, well, look at you, well, look at me. And then we have this split. And I've seen it over the last year, especially in our world politics, right? We've seen the split of left and right and nothing in between. There's no consensus. There's no listening to somebody else and understanding their point of view. You still can disagree. It's yes or no, and it's bang right at you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big problem. And and it's affecting opinions sometimes with people, because you think, what are they going to say? And that's not right. We don't have that core belief of understanding others. So yeah, I call it a me society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think to kind of, I think if we looked right there, like that's definitely the root of many issues. And shifting the focus away from me to you is sort of the essence of servant leadership in my understanding, and sort of, when I try and explain servant leadership in a simple sense to people, that's kind of my base starting point, I guess.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's actually proven when you serve others and you use the like we have 11 core values and beliefs in servant leadership that we teach. When you're using those things and you're helping others, that intrinsic feeling or that reward at the end, seeing somebody else grow and develop, is better than any other thing in the entire world, because you helped somebody else.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
it's really cool to see. So I know people always say, well, why should we take servant leadership training? It's because you're going to get more out of this than you think.
Yeah.
It's just not about helping others. You're going to grow and develop as a good human.
Yeah. So, I mean, with that being said there, how do we shift our mindset then? We've talked about a little bit about what servant leadership is. We've talked a little bit about what the problem with leadership today is, or even you could say society in general. But like, how do we shift our mindset from me to you, or from not servant leadership to servant leadership?
Yeah, it's actually funny because I am going to talk about me for a bit, but it's self-awareness, really. I have this theory, and I've talked about it for years. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else?
Right.
So we actually that's the difference in our trainings is we say it's not all about you, but it is about you. So changing your mindset is really, really hard. It's hard to do in anything. It's like if you're trying to lose weight and exercise more, or, trying to stop smoking, of whatever you're trying to do. It's hard to shift that mindset. But it starts all with you and a deep dive into your personal purpose. And it really includes self-awareness. Awareness is the first thing that we teach, and we spend a lot of time on it. And we actually have three kind of areas that we focus on, three parts of the mind in our training. And that's your cognitive ability, how you think, your affective abilities. So that's your personality, your values, your intrinsic motivations, and your cognitive abilities, which is your instincts. And we really dive deep into that so that you can get this overall sense of, this is me. I love me, but this is my purpose. This is why I get up in the morning. And what we've noticed is like 99% of the people's purpose is to do good for others. It comes out. And that's what we want to get to. That's the core. So it's to shift the mindset, you got to work at it, but you got to work on yourself first. You got to love you. And it's not the narcissism piece and the me I just talked about. That's totally different. It's this is me. This is what my strengths are. And how am I going to help others? What is my purpose and goal? So it takes some work, but that's how you do it. And it takes 21 days actually to build a habit. It's proven.
Yeah. And that's a great perspective. And I think if I was going to just to summarize that for everyone listening, is like changing the mindset starts with you, knowing yourself and working on yourself so that you can better serve others. So I'm glad that you've spoken a little bit about some of the training that Servant Leadership Academy offers. And, for those who are interested in a deep dive into servant leadership, I'd like to take a few moments to talk about the certifications that you've put together.
Sure.
And I've had the good fortune to participate in the practitioner level. And, it was, for me, an eye-opening experience. Like, I've always had an affinity for servant leadership, but the program took me to a deeper level of understanding, which I think is the point, right? Both of myself and of servant leadership. So why don't you talk a little bit about these programs, what they offer, and what your goals are for people taking them?
Yeah. So right now we have two streams, and we're working on two more. The first stream is called Advocate. So it's an online self-paced platform. It's about 2.5 hours, 3 hours of content that you can go through on your own time. And it's through a backend portal that we use. And it gives you that servant leadership 101 and the foundations of what this all means. It talks about the practices, the principles, and the purpose stuff, but it's overarching. It's a very high level piece. And then like you said, what you took is a practitioner. And that practitioner, we have two ways of doing it. It is the self-paced, and it has 30 modules. So it's got a lot in it, and it takes deeper dives into your purpose. So there's 3 assessments that you get with it to work on you. And then there is videos and tools and books and things that you can all take a deeper dive into the the principles of servant leadership and the practices of servant leadership. So we have what we call the 3 circles of influence. So purpose, principles, and practices. So you learn about your like awareness, what we just talked about. Your calling, for example, is a big piece in there. And then we've switched to principles, which is about growth, stewardship, community. And then the practices, that's kind of the actions that you could take with people when you start focusing on servant leadership. So using foresight, using healing, empathy, listening, persuasion, and conceptualization. So you get all those kind of deeper dives into those 3 circles of influence. And that's self-paced. And then you can take actually a facilitated 3-day course with Kevin and I. And we just take that practitioner and we do it virtually now over Zoom. And we have some cool group activities and insights and talking with other people around the world. So you can have anybody from around the world, which is really cool. And he takes that practitioner self-paced and just puts it into a virtual session. So if you have questions right away, Kevin and I are there. We're facilitating, we're leading it. And we just did one a couple weeks ago. It was awesome to see the differences in people and the aha moments. Even over Zoom, you can see it. You can see it now, right? Aha moments. So those are the things we offer now. And then we're working on 2 streams called Servant Leadership Mentorship Program and an executive level servant leadership program, which we hope to launch here right away.
Awesome. And I'm glad that you, like you point out, actually, that there's quite a bit of content in there. Like there is, I was super impressed by the depth of the information. I know you're offering these other levels that you can take people, even, I don't know if you want to call it deeper or higher, but, you get more information yet in the other levels that are coming out soon. But, like if you follow every link that you guys include and all the resources and like you really do the work, like there is a fair amount of hours there that you can spend really deepening your knowledge. So I want to say, props to you and to Kevin for developing that program, and I got a lot out of it. I'm a bit of I've become a bit of a geek on some of these self-assessments and learning more about myself, and that's been an important subject for me. And I mean, at 30, almost 37 years old, like I've really only scratched the surface of like truly understanding myself. And it's easy to say I know myself, but it's another level, I think, to be able to say I know myself, and you kind of connect the dots around how you interact in the world. Which is, I think, another level of it. So
there's a lot there. And in the self-paced one, like that you took, there is a lot there, and that's why it took a while for that content to be built and to be aligned properly, and to have that flow. So we love the assessment piece and that purpose piece. That's just, once you start digging into that and you realize, oh, this is me, makes sense. And we talk about it, like when you can self-regulate. And then when you self-regulate, you become more socially aware. So you understand people, you understand what's going on around you. And then your relationship management skills become better. So you can have, there's books on crucial conversations in leadership and all that. Once you understand your strengths and how to approach things and become more aware of your environment, you can start having those conversations, and they become more crucial. They could become easier too. So yeah. And then the assessments piece, that's kind of my jam too. So I've been Colby certified. That's one of the assessments that we use. I love it. In everything that I do. I know Colby's MOs. I asked you your MO before this, right? Like it's so fun. And I just I'm trying to get my kids to understand that now at 13, 12, 10, and 7, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, we offer a lot. We got lots there. We hope, and being from Saskatchewan, a small group in Canada, it's really interesting how we're starting to get some traction globally too. So it's good. Our goal here is to make better humans.
Period. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's an amazing objective, and I mean, since taking that course, I find myself talking about that idea more and more. Is like it's not just about better employees. Like that's such it's not a worthy enough goal, to borrow a phrase from this another gentleman, but like it's far more a worthy goal to say that I help people become better people overall.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about that. Another question for you as we near the end here of our time. LinkedIn, early in the year, or maybe it was at the end of 2020, they come out with this, big ideas for the coming year, right? So their big idea for 2021 said that a leader's character would be everything, and that servant leadership would become a competitive advantage. So I wanted to ask you your perspective on that. Do you agree, and why or why not?
Absolutely. I've always been in situations where, like engineers sometimes get a bad rap because they're engineers. They're really smart people. They understand how things work. But some engineers aren't necessarily have good character or good soft skills, we say in the HR world. And you're seeing a trend to looking at people's character. And what's character defined by? Well, that's defined by typically how you treat others or how you represent yourself in society is really what character is. When I coach basketball, and football, those are my favorite sports to coach. I look at character. I look at, is that kid coachable? Is he a good teammate, or she? Are they nice to others? Are they helping teammates? That's character. So that's bang on. And what flows into that is servant leadership, because when you're there and you have good character, you are going to serve others. You are going to put people before you. And that's super important. And we're seeing that trend. We're seeing that trend in the world today. People don't want to hear the me stuff and look at me, power control. I'm the best, hierarchical. We have that one slide that shows, it's very simple, typical over the course of time. Leadership is a top-down approach. We believe in a bottom-up approach, empowering your people. So I absolutely agree with that statement from LinkedIn. And you're going to see this. You're going to see this take off. The world needs it. The world needs to be healed, Reshad. It does. And we think that servant leadership can help big time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that perspective. Before I ask you my last two questions of the interview, is there anything that you'd like to say and leave the listeners with? Any other final points?
Yeah, servant leadership's been around for a while. It's kind of old school, the way it was written. But really our mandate to get the word out on servant leadership is kind of what we'll be talking about, is do something good for somebody else. Really, that's what it comes down to. And I like our conversation too about, it's just not about being a better boss at work. It's about being a better human. And our world needs better humans. We need to teach our kids that. If you ever want to watch a great video, Bob Chapman, and a great book to read, it's called Everybody Matters. He's the CEO of a company called Barry Wehmiller in the US. And he talks about, every human being is somebody's child. That's super impactful. So we should treat somebody's child just like your own, with love and kindness and empathy, and listen to them and be present and those types of things. So, I mean, if it's one thing to say, is to reach out and help somebody else, serve somebody else, because they'll serve somebody around them.
Yeah, and those are those are just two powerful concepts right there. And I think a great way of wrapping up our conversation today is to remember that everyone is somebody's child, and just to reach out and to serve someone.
Yeah.
So thank you. Last two questions here, and then we'll get you to kind of give a plug to Servant Leadership Academy and where people can find you. But what is one thing you know about life or leadership that you wish everyone knew?
Well, in life in general, time is the most valuable asset in the world. Time. So what you do with your time and the decisions you make, because you never know when your time will stop. That's what I'm learned. And when you're just clipping by and time, you're not thinking about time. Before you know it, it's gone. And that's my father had a big impact on me, and my father passed away 4 years ago. And that's that's the biggest thing I've taken from this is time. And in leadership, true leadership is serving somebody else. True leadership is making an impact on somebody so that they change their ways or they believe in themselves, but then they pass that on to somebody else. And I think that impact is that's just massive. That's true leadership. That's true leadership. So that's what I would say.
That's powerful. When it's all said and done, what 3 words do you want used to describe your life?
Well, right now, and I'm not much older than you, I'm only by a year, but I do have my 4 kids and my wife, and, I would put these words after. So like, I'm pretty easygoing and I like to use the word dude and bro. So I would say, at my celebration of my life, if I were gone, I would say dude was full of love. So love. Dude was caring. And dude was awesome.
I love it. Oh man, this has been fun, and I really like your answers, and I really like the dude. So that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us today, Cory. Could you just let everybody know where they can find out more about servant leadership and what you guys are up to?
Yeah, our website, servantleadershipacademy.com, and we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram as well. You can reach me at Cory@servantleadership.com if you have any questions, but our website drives everything, all of our contact information. If you want to know more about servant leadership and just its framework, it's on there. We also offer Agile courses. So if you're interested in Agile HR, Agile leadership, Kevin and I are both certified in that. So we teach those things as well. So it's all there on our website, servantleadershipacademy.com.
Perfect. Well, everyone, this has been an amazing episode of the Weekly Leadership Experience, talking with Cory Blair from Servant Leadership Academy, all about servant leadership. Look for the show notes and all the links that Cory's just mentioned in the show notes at ReshadOberlander.com. Thanks for tuning in today. Talk to you again next week. In the meantime, stay awesome. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, would you head over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, leave me a rating, leave me a review, and share this with a friend. It spreads the word and helps the podcast grow. You can also find me on social media at RE Oberlander. Until next time, stay awesome.